Hello and welcome to another episode of Project Peak Performance. This week we are reviewing another fantastic episode. This time it was business coach and owner of Actioncoach, James Burke. So James helps small to mid-sized businesses become more profitable, and a fantastic story of someone that had overcome homelessness, a career-ending boxing injury, and has created a fantastic business that helps other businesses. So delighted to be joined today by Dave, Rob, and Ian. Hi guys, how we doing?
Yeah, mate. Good. Good.
Very good. Very good. Counting down holiday for me. The time that this is released, I will be away, sunning up.
You better listen to it, mate, again.
Yeah.
Leave us with some gold. Leave us
Yeah.
with some gold today. So yeah, it was a great episode. What were your guys' thoughts? If you were to give it a bit of a summary or a key takeaway, Ian, do you wanna kick us off? You're obviously one of the co-hosts.
Yeah. Enjoyed it. Loved the conversation with James. If you haven't listened to it, 100% listen to it because not only will you feel motivated afterwards, you'll take some golden nuggets. Everyone will take their own golden nuggets away from it, but you definitely find something in there. There was a lot of value. I've actually worked with Action Coach before. So we worked with Action Coach when me and Mike were trying to effectively get off the estate agency tools and transition into running the business. So um, the way that they work with business owners, I'm kind of familiar with, but I think James probably is a little bit different to most action coaches. I think he's probably a bit more, dare I say, he's obviously clearly into his marketing, but I think he's probably a bit more into the human part of running a business rather than the mechanics of running a business than most of the other coaches out there. So although I was expecting a lot of conversation about growth club and 90-day planning and hitting certain key sort of milestones, it was very interesting to hear from James's point of view, more around the psyche and mindset and that aspect of it, really. So I left and I felt charged up. I don't know about you, Dave, but I had
Yeah,
a
it was,
bloody
mate.
good day.
Yeah, it was. I thought, to be fair, when I've listened to it again today, obviously I was a privileged position to be on the pod in the first place, but it was pretty much in the conversation, you could see and read through it that it was pretty much a roadmap to success in any which way you deem success, whether that be in relationships, in parenting, in business, in life. It was just, yeah, it was really good, inspirational. Some of the things and the quotes that he came out with were, yeah, just knocked you back and made you think a little bit. And there was a few times that I was like, wow, yeah, I really like that. I think I said it out loud a few times on the pod, but
But yeah, the one that stood out for me was, I think, when you said that was, consistency won't guarantee success, but I can guarantee if you aren't consistent, then you won't be successful. I
yeah,
thought that was really strong
amazing.
comment.
Amazing, yeah. And the two big questions, I think it was Jim Rowan, and there was a waitress in Denny's. And when he asked the questions, what kind of where are you going? And I don't know. And okay, how much time are you spending trying to figure out where you're going to go? And again, the answer to the question, which would be the normal for most people, is not even thought about it. And then when you actually sit back and think about the answers to those two questions, it leaves you feeling a bit empty and a hole, and you're like, wow, okay, maybe even I should be putting a bit more time aside to be looking at this because it's truly important. But yeah, I thought it was a brilliant pod, great conversation, really nice guy, and as Ian said, yeah, if you've not listened to it, there will definitely be something in there because we covered everything from relationships, parenting, into business setups and how to give yourself the best fighting chance of succeeding in this crazy game of life. So that's what I took away from it, mate. And yeah, I was hyped at the end of it. It was good little chat that.
What about yourself, Rob? Obviously, not one of sort of the co-hosts listening to it as a sort of first observer. What was your thoughts?
Really relatable, especially what I do, around the consistency. What I loved about it was more, it's very simply put. It wasn't complex. It was just very simple, straight to the point. Like you were saying, like it's not it have to be chaos. It's like these are the bits you need to be doing. And it was one of those ones where I listened to it and you sort of gazed out the window and really thought about what he was saying, rather than it just being one of those podcasts where you listen to it, you come to the end and you go, that was all good. Like really thought provoking.
Yeah.
which I really enjoyed about it.
Yeah, it was good.
Yeah.
What about you, Alex? What was your takeaways from it?
Yeah, I loved the way that it flitted between obviously stuff you could take into sort of a business setup to then going into sort of family dynamics. And I don't know, it made me question a few things I do as a parent. You know, for me, love my kids and always try and do things with the right intentions. But there was a part he went on to around, you know, we as parents try to make our kids feel loved, but do our words and actions back this up?
Yeah.
It's that sort of almost because the ones you're closest to, the one you love, sometimes you talk in a way that you might not do otherwise if you were with someone you're slightly removed from. So business setting, work setting, I'm as progressive as positive as can be, and I work with people to understand, you know, give them that time and clarity and stuff like that. With my kids, I can sort of go to a bit more of a direct mode or sort of talk in a way which actually I could understand they could take that the wrong way. So he used the example of teeth cleaning, you know, telling your kid,
Terrier,
teeth, going to have bad breath or something like that. So that's all they hear then. I've got bad breath, I've got bad breath. You know, he spoke about shouting on the sidelines at football. Again, it made me think of my boys, you know, they're sort of getting quite good at football. And because certainly my oldest is a bit more progressed and very good for his age, I suddenly think, well, he's obviously going to need to focus on that now. So how's he going to become a high performer? He needs to understand standards, expectations, and I'll go a little bit more like trying to give that to him rather than just letting him play and enjoy it. So that mid balance between being too strict and not strict enough, and most important is the use of the words to ensure the kids feel loved and you're phrasing things in the right way. So, you know, you're not putting stuff in their head that makes them doubt themselves. I really resonated it with that part of the episode.
Yeah, it makes you think again, doesn't it? Like I said, when I'd watched it again, I didn't pick it up the first time as much. I think there's so much going on the pod. When you get back, you don't have time to really reflect as much. But after listening to it, I remember thinking to myself just before, wow, I can at least 10 things where I've done this wrong in the last 6 weeks. You know, these are things that I need to be looking at more of the we, not you, and individualizing and the children. And again, like you said, I think it's something that we can be taking into the workplace as well. There's certainly a hierarchy in a lot of businesses that I see where the same attitude, because it's still the same, we still feel the same when people say things to us, when we believe that it's on us. So yeah, I thought that was a really, really good point that he made there. And I'm just thinking now, I wonder what other things, because there's tons that I've learned in this where I think, well, I don't do that. Maybe I should give a bit more time now to be thinking about this.
I think just on the feedback thing, because this was a big take home for me. It's the sort of, it's almost like when your chimp gets involved, and the immediacy of feedback or a comment is probably when it's not actually put across the right way. Yeah. And my 4-year-old actually, he came back from school and he's sort of been quite impulsive. You know, there's been a few things happening where he's lashed out or he's getting a little bit, you know, I don't know what the right word is, but essentially he said that he's been told to sort of count to 5 a little bit more, count to 5. And I suddenly was like, well, I could probably take a leaf out of that book. Certainly around the home, when something sort of hits me and winds me up, it's like, you don't need to feedback immediately, certainly not in the home environment. And it's like after a game of football with one of my boys, the feeling and the need to almost give feedback as soon as the car door shuts. It's like, well, you know, talk later in the day, once the dust has settled, once you've had some time to really think about how to say it. Mm-hmm. It definitely made me think about sort of delaying feedback so you can actually get your words right and get the messaging right.
Yeah. Or on that part, Alex, like the phrasing of how you are in that environment. Like, do you need to give feedback, or would it be benefit to ask them questions on how on rather than like, so they can internally analyze what they feel about their game of football or whatever that might be. I mean, where obviously I'm co-parenting with my partner Kel, who's like a special needs child counsellor, and going into that side to it. I was so relatable to this because like I would say something and she'll be like, you need to phrase it like this, and I'm like, okay. And I'm really learning it. Obviously behind us she's got loads of books around parenting the right way, whatever it might be.
Did you find that some of them contradict each other? Do you find quite a few contradictory messages, or is it generally like the old success leaves clues? It's the theme is the same.
I think we like with anything, depends on the field or the type of parenting you want to go down the route of. So where Kel's very much more holistic, then and like child is a center of them understanding their own emotions, what's going on, how they're feeling, then all of the books we've got tend to highlight towards that rather than it just being a more general side to it all. But I found that because the term really is what you call generational trauma. And that's when you look at it for every generation, what we're talking about limiting beliefs. How far does that generational trauma go back? Was it a belief that the grandparents put onto pet children, that they put onto their children, they put onto their children? And really, when you look at it, like what was the environments of actually the grandparents? Like they were in a war, a different style of living, different style of belief, different type of environments, community, that sort of side to it. So it's amazing how much we take on like the beliefs, limiting beliefs of our parents and their grandparents.
And that came off the back of a really good question. There was a couple of really good questions. I noted one from Dave and one from me, and the one from me and around. I think you asked, can you coach people with that sort of negative, that glass half full mindset to be more positive and change them and how they see the outlook on life, and that led to that conversation I think about nature and people's number one belief being I'm not enough and sort of leading to a lot of self-doubting and stuff like that. So yeah, that was a great line of questioning, Ian, that led to sort of a little bit of stuff, under the surface.
Yeah.
It's a constant toy of trying to do what the right thing is, because talking parenting, talking coaching, talking leadership roles. Ultimately, you want a high performance family dynamic, you want a high performance business dynamic, and you want a high performance fitness dynamic as well. And it was quite interesting, the conversations. I thought we'd talk a lot business, but we spoke a lot about this, like I mentioned at the beginning. But it's so difficult because I think nothing gets you more emotionally connected than parenting, and how you in both spectrums. And I actually find my chimp is vicious. So it's vicious, and I've known it for many, many years. And it's something that reading the chimp paradox and sort of road rage is used in that. But because I've got away with words, if it comes out instantly, I'll cut someone down in 3 seconds flat, and afterwards I'll go, oh, maybe it was a bit harsh there, including the kids. If it's there, it's there. It comes out. And so it's something I've got to be very aware of, because like the negativity with parenting and stuff like that, but the same thing applies with your team. So it was really interesting because I actually left that podcast. It did make me think, how do you, I really struggle with my 7-year-old to clean their teeth properly. And it was so topical, because you do say, clean your teeth, you're gonna have stinky breath, or you can't just leave she just leaves the toothbrush in her mouth, stares out the window like it's not scrubbing. And you're going through all these logical bits to the point where the chimp comes out at some point, because you get pissed off about it, basically. So it is hard, but then you just have to learn different techniques that work with each individual. There is no like silver bullet, it's kind of, you've got to understand how you communicate with someone else that wants to receive the communication. And that relationship is different for each two people. So it's really hard. There is no like, this is the answer. You can read all the books, do all the courses, listen to all the podcasts. But ultimately, if me and Alex are having a cup of coffee, that's a different conversation to me and Dave having a cup of coffee, to Rob and Alex having a cup of coffee. It's a different dynamic. It's a different style. So it's ever evolving, isn't it? It's ever evolving.
I just think the one learning that I'll take from it, that I'm going to try and put more into how I speak to the kids, is going to be linked to thinking of that future version of them, and sort of trying to think, if I don't sort of try as much as possible to refine what I say and how I say it, the limiting beliefs that are going to be built on them when they turn to sort of like 25, 30, 35. So I'm going to try and visualize an older version of each of them prior to talking, and see if that has an impact. It's not always going to stop it. I'm sure it won't, but like limit it.
Yeah, I think it's there's another interesting point on this when we look at how much we are parenting the kids. And James made a great point of how we quite easily can do something wrong, and the consequence of that could be that the child would have a bitter taste, feel unloved, everything else. But on the same token, I'm sure we've all seen the memes that are going around at the moment. I saw one the other day, some young lady saying that the thumbs up signal on WhatsApps to the Gen Zs is pretty much flipping them the bird. And there was a guy my age who basically said, I've got something to tell you. We don't give a shit. We grew up in an era where we used to take the piss out of each other for fun, like all of the time. And it raises a question. Where's this balance? Because what we don't want to do, as much as we don't want to have children that feel unloved, not good enough, and that they've been downtrodden on, and there's no hope for the future, we also don't want them super entitled that they're so entitled nobody can hurt their feelings and X, Y, and Z. And I think that I've seen a huge shift going from one way of parenting over to the other way of parenting at the moment. And I've got a funny feeling that it may end up ricocheting and coming back again if we're not doing it. But it's like Ian was just saying, then it raised the point. It's so difficult to find this. Where's that line between I want you to have some grit and determination and some balls, for the better word, in one thing, because I do believe that they are key ingredients to make a successful human being. But then we also don't want to say the wrong thing. I mean, where does that lie? As parents now in today, with all of this information around, fuck me, which way do we go, boys? Which way do we go?
Dave, I think like James mentioned, I think one is boundary setting, understanding the boundaries, and two, the route that we've gone down in the society we have is not necessarily it isn't the correct way of doing it, because you disempower the individual to own their own emotions and own their own beliefs and where they sit in the world. If you take that away from them, so if you cuddle them too much, and that's not about cuddling, it's getting them to understand how they regulate their own emotions and how they perceive the world, that they are accountable for their own actions and accountable for their own journey. If you don't allow your child, you're like, oh, I'll do that for you, I'll do that for you, I'll do that for you. Like he was saying, oh, it's too dangerous, don't do that, don't fall over. All of a sudden, that's what they see the world. Whereas if, a bit like we said about Alex, if you've got your child in a car and was like, right, X, Y, and Z, you need to change this and etc. But if you're coaching them in some ways, you're sitting in the car going, how did you perform? I was a bit tired on this bit. How do you think you're tired? Because last night, Dad, I went to bed too late. Okay, so what are you going to do next for the next game? Like, those are different conversations, because it's getting them to think about getting them to problem solve themselves.
Thinking about their actions and consequences.
And their emotions, and how did you feel about this, and what sort of side to it. And I think that's where some of the society we've gone through again, generational trauma. You either correct it or you go the opposite way to what you've done. So if you were massively told off as a child and stuff like that, and that's how you want, and you want to try and correct it, if you don't do it the correct way, you go reverse. You over cuddle and you overthink it, and all of a sudden that's where we've seen the shift. You think about the generation before, parents who were served in the war, taught those parents are now obviously coming into the older generations, and we're sitting in that environment. That's where that swing's happening.
Have you heard the Joe Rogan quote about hard times, which is so relevant to this? You probably have, but he says, hard times create strong men. Strong men create good times. Good times create weak men, and weak men create hard times. And it's where in that cycle are we? And it's what you're talking about, from war to this to COVID to, where in that cycle are we? And what are we building in our business lives and in our kind of family dynamic? What are we making it too easy? Are we making it too hard? Are we what are we creating, with our workflows and our kind of our family dynamics? But I love that quote, because it always makes me think, which part are we in? Which part?
Where are we at now? Yeah.
So have any of you read the book Bad Therapy: Why the Kids Aren't Growing Up by Abigail Schreier?
No.
just started listening to it. It's relatively new, but interestingly, Elon Musk tweeted about or X'd about it the other day.
Yeah.
Just to say, sort of every parent should read this book, and it'd be interesting to
What's
see
it
if
called
anyone
again,
else
Alex?
picks up.
Sorry,
It's called
Bad Therapy.
Bad Therapy: Why the Kids Aren't Growing Up. And it's sort of trying to get that ground of we've gone maybe, or some institutions have gone too far in terms of constantly asking, how are you? Is everything all right?
Yeah.
You know, and almost opening up lines of thoughts in kids,
Yeah.
which has led to them feeling a certain way, whereas it's getting that balance bit right. So yeah, might be one for people to get if they've got
100%,
if
mate,
anyone's got Spotify Premium, you can get it for free. So
Nice.
worth a
Happy days.
download.
There we go. Love that. It's
So-
really
so-
difficult with this when you look at the just in the conversation we've just had in the parents. I remember listening to a story about a set of twin boys. One of them was ridiculously successful, and the other one was an alcoholic bum, for want of a better word. And they both got interviewed, whether it was by a psychologist or whatever, I'm not too sure, but they both got interviewed, and the answers as to why they were the person that they were identical. And they both got asked, why are you successful and as successful as you are? And the successful one said, because my dad was an alcoholic. So he'd seen the detriment of what had happened and decided to go against it. But the twin was an alcoholic and a bit of a bum. And they said to him, why do you think you've ended up here? He said, are you daft? My dad was an alcoholic. Now that is just like, because there is just as much power in both of those fuel tanks, really, whether it's coming from I definitely don't want this because I've seen the pain, or to the fact that maybe more of a victim mentality, that this is how I've been brought up, I'm not going to change, it's in our DNA, and this, that, and the other. But the fuel is still there. But the only thing that's changed is the message.
Story.
Where got that from? I mean, I don't know the answer to this story, but it does go to show that there can be, you know, you might think you've done the wrong thing, but it could be the right thing. You might think you've done the right thing, but it could be the wrong thing.
And you might not know, but with those brothers, did the family split? Did the one that ended up following the dad's path go and live with the dad? Like, was there any sort of more
I don't know the dynamics of that, to be fair. I didn't, it was just a short story and it probably made up, in all honesty, but I can believe it. And I did get it off the internet. So it might be true, it might be not, who knows, who cares, but it's a decent story anyway.
I think talking about successful people, one of your questions, Dave, which I sort of wrote down, was what ingredients can we add to our life that will help us to be successful? Is there a sort of constant theme, you know, or a single thing that he would sort of attribute to it? So I thought that was a really good question. And if you remember what his word was?
Word, there was tons of them, mate. Probably consistency.
Yeah. So consistency. And he sort of linked to people that he is obviously in his ecosystem, people that are accountable to turning up to every session, people that are going to fill out the forms and do the pre-work, and you know, they do it every single time. I mean, would any of you put a different word if you were to say one word behind successful people? Have you got any other words to throw into the mix?
I've always thought in my head, and I probably share this quite a lot on LinkedIn, but in my head, there's not one thing. Obviously, I'm big on the power of three, but I think a lot of people have really good ideas and really good goals, but then some people can take the goal and turn it into a plan, and that's the next layer. So it's like, I've got a really good goal and I've got a really good plan. And then the successful people are the people that take the goal and the emotional connection with the functionality of the plan and start with massive action and commitment to it. And if you follow those three layers, that is the success for the initial goal. Define them as a successful person, but successful in that goal search. That for me is the three layers that will achieve whatever it is that you're setting out to achieve, or give you the best opportunity to do so. And I don't think you can just have a really strong goal without a really strong plan, without a personal discipline to take huge actions to step to it. That's the thing for me, is no one thing. I think you have to link those together to get the answer, or get the goal, or get the achievement, or the satisfaction of whatever it is you're trying to achieve. That's my view on it.
I suppose it links nicely to, he spoke about sort of the focus versus the drifters, and making the time, really important to make the time to understand what you want and what you're working for or towards. So understanding your target and purpose. So you talk about the goal, there's loads of people that will have an idea, maybe even get to planning stage, but then it's like, actually, that's not going to work. Or
See,
like back out of it at that point.
yeah, I think it's down to the why. I think lack of execution is down to a low why tank. And let me explain that. If you've not got a big enough reason why, you just won't take that next step. We're designed to stay safe. Our brain's number one job is to keep you safe. So we'll play all kinds of crazy tricks to keep that happening. And if it sees something that's no benefit to you, if it's not going to change your life that much, there's not going to be enough fuel behind it to do it. So you either really need to enjoy it or whatever else. But the bigger the why, that is where I believe you get the motivation from. So you can be consistent in whatever you want, but if you've not got the goal to go to, which is greater than where you currently are, but I believe you need the why. Why are you doing it in the first place? If you don't have that why, I think you're going to struggle, to be honest with you, because what's the point? Everything about the biology of your body and the neurosets going inside your brain will just stop you doing it. There needs to be a reason why we put ourselves in any form of danger, which could be getting on the bus, incidentally, depending on the person.
What do you think, Rob? Have you got any sort of other words to use, or are you sort of in line with the why, the purpose, the driver?
Discipline. I always come back with, like, discipline is the fundamental of all of it. Like, disciplined in your why. Like, you can have all the motivation in the world to go and do something, but you're not disciplined to get up every day and do that thing. Like, a simple one, is it going to be day one or one day? Simple quote. So, like, which one do you choose? Are you going to keep talking about doing it, or are you going to do action on day one? And the power of just a small step, like Ian was talking about, and Dave was talking about it. Have an idea. Everyone goes into planning. You over plan it. Plan. But actually, it's like you just took that one step. That's the part where it actually starts to come into implementation.
Yeah.
And so many people don't do that one step because they're just scared of all the what could happen without it just being, that's just drummed up in your brain.
Yeah.
Obviously, I coach a lot of clients across the UK, and I have all of them that do well. We always talk about it. A lot of them speak to me. I think Ian put a LinkedIn post today about it, like silver bullet. What can I do, Rob, quicker to accelerate this process? I was like, turn up, do what you said you're going to do, and be continued with that, and be disciplined to it. Don't get all waving off. Don't veer off. We know the goal. We need to achieve it. And every single client I can put on the same hand that's been very, very successful have all got those same things. They're just simple disciplines, commitments, plans, goals, driving factors, the why behind it, what they're looking to achieve from it.
Yeah, I love that. There's a scene or a section in The Boy, the Mole, the Fox and the Horse, where the horse mentions about it being dark. Or yeah, there you go. And the horse literally says, "Can you take one more step? Can you see one more step?" So rather than looking at the bigger element of it, and I use that a lot in my running when I'm struggling, is can I run one more mile? And if the answer is I can run one more mile, I can run through the suffering moment that I'm in to get to the next bit. I can't run one more mile, then I stop. That hasn't happened yet. But if that happens, then you stop. But it's the same in business, there's A and B, isn't there? There's winners and there's losers. There's the twin that saw the power of not being the dad. There's the twin that saw I'm going to be the dad. There's the solution versus the problem, the risk taker versus what Dave mentioned about the why. I was chatting with a friend of mine on Sunday where we were out for a run, and he was talking about his dad, and his dad's a chartered accountant, and talking about the difference between a kind of a risk adverse type role like a chartered accountant versus someone like a James Burke, for example, linking it back to the podcast. You got very different personalities in how they kind of make their decision making, and sometimes it comes down to what Rob said there is the personal discipline. Can you just take one more step? Can you have one more go? Because I hate that phrase that Eric Thomas, the the kind of, you know, the American motivator. Winners win and losers
Preacher, I
lose.
think he's called, isn't it?
The Preacher, yeah.
Hip-hop
Some
preacher.
of his stuff is amazing. You know, the kind of do you want it as bad as you want to breathe is phenomenal.
Yeah.
But the thing where he goes winners win and losers lose, kind of that one rubs me up the wrong way, because I'm kind of like, well, a winner simply is the loser that kept losing until they found the win, right? They learn off the lessons, and really a loser is a quitter in my eyes,
Yeah.
rather than not. And a winner is actually someone that's probably lost a lot to get there. So it's not factually correct, but that comes back to what we were talking about there, really, with is the why really strong enough to want you to stick to the plan, to have the personal discipline that Rob's talking about, some of the stuff that James is talking about in your mindset, to want to try and get the goal. That's kind of the recipe, if you like, I think.
Yeah. I think in nature, I know you said winners win and losers lose, but in nature, it is that. I mean, they're not all got little mini businesses going to, not that we're aware of anyway, or anything like that, but it literally is the strong survive and the weak die. And I mean, are we too soft? You know, we've got a very, very low pain threshold as human beings, really low, you know, in comparison to other things. But if you look in nature, it's very, very apparent to see across the whole of the world, winners win.
Even to the extent of David Goggins, he'll go to the darkest place as soon as possible, just to sort of provide that pain.
Yeah.
You know, see what's possible. So I think, you know, it's a really good point. And I was sort of linking that sort of exercise piece to how people talk to you. I was only just thinking then that I'd have a personal trainer, and when it's you know, he'll always sort of get me to do more by at the last minute saying, you got another one in the tank, you got 2 more in the tank. So rather than if I'm doing a set of 10 and I know I'm at sort of a reasonable weight and it sort of like gets to this, you know, bit tougher towards the end, it'll get to like 9 and then he'll go, let's keep going. You got another one and another one. And he knows that my mind will be like, yeah, I'll do it. Yeah, I can do it. I can do it. But rather than at the start say, okay, we're going to do 14 now. Straight away, my mind would be like, oh, bloody hell, that's a jump, isn't it? So, yeah, no, it's interesting how, you know, fair play to him for tapping into what sort of I need at the time. But maybe I should be more ambitious and more disciplined to go, oh, I'll do 14, I'll do bloody 15, mate. Come on then.
Yeah.
We got Chris Hunt recorded, and that episode will drop soon. And for those that are listening, one to check out, because Chris is an ex-Marine. And one of the things that he was talking about was when you see the Marines training and they're doing the hikes, the bags, you know, they've got 70 kilos on their back or whatever, and the trainers get them to the point and they think they've finished, and the trainers go, we're going past the point. And Chris said you used to be able to look around even at Marine level and just see people go, fuck this, like just quit, because they thought they were getting to a point. And I've mentioned it on the podcast about when I did that training run and got to 18 miles and I still had 8 more to do, but psychologically I'd got my friend to the car and tapped out. But that's something that's hard, like you say with the PT. No, we're not doing 10 today, you've got 4 more. And that's a different type of mindset. That's a winning mindset. It goes, okay, we go again. Who's going to carry the boats? Goggins style. That's that. Linking that to, did people see the story of Jasmine Paris and the Barkley Marathons?
Yeah,
I saw a couple of posts. So give us a rundown of that, Ian. Obviously, being the ultra marathon dude you are, what makes this so special for people who haven't heard?
So the Barkley Marathons is basically classified as the toughest foot race in how it works, because there's a psychological element of it. So it's not the furthest, it is a high one, but in 36 years, 20 people have actually finished it in 36 years of running the event. Only 20. She's the first female to ever do it, and the first Brit, I believe, to ever do it as well. And there's a 60-hour cutoff. It's 5 laps. If you complete all 5 laps, it's the equivalent of climbing Everest twice within the 60 hours and running in excess of 100 miles. So it's called the Barkley Marathons because there's 5 laps, more or less each lap is a marathon, but obviously with drastic incline. Where it becomes different if you don't know what time it's starting, there's a 12-hour window. So everyone's camped. It can start between midnight and lunchtime. You have no idea when it's going to start. So people go to bed, and sometimes the shell horn that the Lazarus blows, who created it, says, right, it's 3 o'clock in the morning, you've got an hour, everyone's up, go. So you don't know when you're starting. Throughout each lap, you have to collect your race number from 12 different books. So it's a navigation piece as well as endurance, as well as climbing. But you can't have GPS. Your phone and your watch is taken from you. And all you have is a watch that they give you, which starts on 0 and just tells you how far into the 60 hours you are. So you have to navigate by a map in the dark. It's normally -5 out there as well. And statistically, by the time you get to lap 2, 60% of the group of people that started have quit by lap 2. And there's 5 laps. So that shows why it's such a psychologically difficult one. And there's some unbelievable YouTube videos if you ever want to watch, like, for 45 minutes at Barkley Marathon's YouTube. But there's a Belgian guy that completed it in 2023, and in 2022 he ran the race. He was on lap 4, so he's elite. These are like the elite of the best of the best of the best, basically. But he was on lap 4, and he was so screwed over and kind of tired and like delusional, effectively, that the police brought him back to camp in the back of a police car because he'd wandered off track talking to a rubbish bin, thinking it was his crew. So he's in the middle of this village and having a chat with a rubbish bin, thinking it was his, like, legitimately, and they thought he was like some crack guy, like, you know, off his noodle. Turned out he was a runner. So that shows the caliber of that. But the reason why it's so tough is not the mileage or the elevation, that combined with the psychological part of navigating. Just one other thing, because I love this. What they did at the end, lap 5, there was 4 people left. She was one of them. And they run as a crew. The elites probably run as a crew for the first 4 laps. But on lap 5, you have to separate. And one goes clockwise and one goes anti-clockwise. And on this particular event, she's tried to, I think this might have been a 3rd or 4th attempt, but one of the guys that had completed it before, that was on the 5th lap, went to get up and do it and realized that he would have taken the clockwise, which is the easier lap, and actually turned to her and said, which one do you want? And she said, can I take the clockwise? And he didn't finish the anti-clockwise, and she finished the clockwise one by 99 seconds. So even in that moment, someone turned around and said, I've already completed this. What one do you want?
Wow.
To get her to that point? So everything aligned to make it happen. So it's a crazy story, a crazy event. And it's, you know, a proud moment for women in ultras to be inspired. And she ran the spine race last year, this Jasmine Paris, which is 260-mile race down the spine of the UK. And she beat 2nd place, a male, by 12 hours. That's how elite she is, basically.
Well, Jasmine, if you're listening, we would love to get you on the pod.
Yeah.
Get in touch.
No problem.
Yeah. 40-year-old vet with 2 kids working full
Just
time.
40 as well. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
what a
amazing.
story.
Amazing.
Right, guys. Well, I think that's quite a good place to finish. Obviously, sort of reviewing a fantastic pod. So thanks to James for joining us and giving us so many actionable tips to take away, but also discuss today. And thank you guys for your time today. I think just for anyone listening, just be sure to try and get over and follow our Facebook page. Keep listening and supporting the pod, and obviously we'll keep you updated with events and as we grow more and more ways for the community to collaborate with us as we continue to grow. So thanks everyone. Have a good day.
Cheers,
Speak
guys.
soon.
Bye-bye.